Welcome to the Mindfulness Academy Podcast. I'm your host, Amy Morgan, and on today's show, we have Leslie Flowers. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you, Amy.
It's so good to have you, and I want to tell everybody a little bit about who you are. For more than a decade, Leslie Flowers has motivated people to be their healthiest, most vibrant, authentic, and successful selves. A graduate of the Medill School of Journalism at Northwestern University, Leslie parlayed her career as a healthcare writer and trained at Duke University Center for Integrative Medicine to become a national board-certified health and well-being coach. Recognizing that stress plays a key role in disease, Leslie also became a qualified teacher of mindfulness-based stress reduction at Brown University's Mindfulness Center. She teaches tools and practices that activate the relaxation response to reduce anxiety, stress, and the negative impacts of stress-induced inflammation on body and emotions. Leslie is in her 10th year as editor of the Indiana University School of Dentistry publications. Because of her passion for health and well-being in all dimensions, she also was appointed the dental school's inaugural Director of Student Wellness, where she has introduced science-based mind-body tools for stress reduction to high-achieving dental students. Outside of work, Leslie loves to hike, bike, cook, and for her family and her friends, she likes to practice yoga and explore mountain ranges. Now, that last part is a little difficult. Where do we travel for those mountain ranges? Because you're here in Indiana, just like me.
We travel. But,
Do you head west, out of the country, a little bit of both?
My latest passion is Asheville, North Carolina, the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Yeah. My parents lived there for a while. It is absolutely gorgeous. It was like a vacation every time we went down, just gorgeous. Well, good for you. I think I recall that we were first connected from the Scott Suite. I think that's where our connection was. And I can't remember. Yes, I think he was the man who connected us, but I can't remember how you know him. Were you part of the same MBSR class, or how did you guys connect?
Fate. Scott is such a wonderful friend and teacher, and now colleague, because we co-teach the 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction class together. So in 2015, almost 10 years ago, 9 years ago, I took the job at the Indiana University School of Dentistry. And I was really sad about it because I had been home with my kids and as a freelancer for 20 years. And it was just a time in our family's life where mom needed a job. And so I took the job at the School of Dentistry, and that in itself was just a wonderful, it has been an incredible fit and just a joy to work there on so many levels. But leaving my kids, leaving my house, commuting every day, and I logged into my brand new IU computer, and there was this course for a 6-week mindful way to stress reduction. And I already was a health coach, and I was a longtime meditator. And I thought, thank you. This is exactly what I needed. I got on the wait list, and then I got in. And that's how I met Scott. He was working for Healthy IU teaching this course. And I cried through the first 3 classes because when you get mindful, emotions can come up when we get present. And anyway, we became good friends, and I took the course a couple of times with him. I took the 8-week classic mindfulness-based stress reduction course with him. And now I teach the same 6-week class that he taught me, and I get to co-teach with him. So that's how I met my teacher, Scott.
I love that. That's a similar sort of experience to me in getting in touch with Scott. He taught the 8-week MBSR class that I took, and from there, I have begun on the path behind you here in Brown University's MBSR teacher training, which is intense and awesome and all the things. It's all the things.
It is the full catastrophe.
The full catastrophe.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
find that we teach what we need, right?
it's
Yeah.
true. There has never been anything truer that has been said. I'm wondering if you'll tell us a little bit about where you grew up. I know you love Asheville, but I don't think that's where you're from, right?
No, I grew up out east. I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area in the suburbs of Maryland, and spent my first 18 years there. And I actually have really never lived back there since. I left for college. I went to Chicago, went to Northwestern, and um, that was really the beginning of my path into mindfulness. If you'd like me to share a little bit about what happened there.
Bring it.
So I was your parents' nightmare going to college. I did not have the emotional tools to leave home. And I did what I would think a lot of 18-year-old young people do when they weren't well equipped to handle the stress, especially of a school like Northwestern. I felt a lot of imposter syndrome being there. And I just fell into the fraternity parties. And for the first 2 years at that very expensive school, I partied a lot. And I say that the reason why I am sitting here today is because I partied too much in college. And by the spring of my sophomore year, it was getting pretty serious, and I really hit a bottom. And I asked for help, and it came from many directions. And one of the tools that I was given was meditation. And so since I've been 20 years old, and I'm a lot older than 20 now, I have had a daily practice of prayer and meditation. And so that was the beginning of my path into mindfulness. And meditation is only one tool of mindfulness. I mean, mindfulness is really a way of living and approaching life. But it was the beginning for me. And after I graduated, I did graduate. I did do pretty well. Got it together for my last 2 years of college. And I started working in the corporate world, doing publications as an editor. And by the time I was 26, I hit my first wall of burnout. I was very driven, very type A, perfectionistic. And I just hit a wall. And so I quit my corporate job and I moved to Boulder, Colorado. And I was really I was seeking rest, nature,
Mountains.
and balance. And
Mountains.
would you say? The
Mountains.
mountains. That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm seeing a theme already.
Yeah. They were calling. They were calling. And so, back in the mid 90s, in most of the country, there wasn't a yoga studio on every corner. But there was in Boulder in the mid 90s. And so I really found what I was seeking. I joined a meditation community, and I also did yoga and learned yoga, and then did a ton of hiking and biking and being in the outdoors. So that was really where I began to deepen my practice. And then I got married and moved back to the Midwest. Actually, not in that order. I moved back to the Midwest, got married, had kids, and continued to freelance write. And then, you're around enough healthcare providers, and pretty much I've always been in healthcare and in marketing communications or as a journalist. And I often thought that I would like to be a healthcare provider, because my favorite part of writing has always been the interview. I mean, the craft of writing is great, but getting to know the people I interviewed, that was what I was passionate about and continue to be. And I have long felt a desire, a calling to be of service in a way other than through communications. But I didn't know what that could be, because even though I come from a dental family, coincidentally, my dad was a periodontist. Other than my children, I can't do other people's bodily fluids. And so I thought about nursing, thought about social work. And then a friend of mine was going through the health and well-being coaching program at Duke. And I said, that's it. That's what I love to do. It's something that I already did. And during my training at Duke, a lot of health coaching models have a wheel of health. have dimensions of health. The Duke model has mindfulness right in the center. And the reason for that is, and I think John Kabat-Zinn, the founder of mindfulness in the West, the sort of the father of mindfulness-based stress reduction. Mindfulness is an invitation to become more familiar with our body, our minds, our emotions, our passions, because we're paying attention in that moment. And it's a pathway to discover what's important. And so I love the Duke model, because how can we know what dimension of well-being we may need or want to shift in if we can't get quiet first and check into our own lives and know what is vastly important to us. So that's my path to where I am now. I later joined the dental school. I became the first director of student wellness, and now I have a private coaching practice, and I teach mindfulness classes. I teach the in-person with Scott Sweet, and then I teach online for Healthy IU, which is the employer well-being provider for Indiana University. And I teach classes via Zoom in my own practice as well.
Very nice. I didn't know the part about the college experience, how that kind of transitioned. I find that with a lot of our guests on the podcast that the pain seems to be, they say that the necessity is the mother of invention. Pain is the mother of the necessity of mindfulness. Maybe it does definitely seem like there's a common thread there. You realize
it's a touchstone for growth.
Yeah, it's a touchstone for growth. You realize you need to settle down a little bit and figure out what's going on inside so you can better control.
I definitely needed to settle down. I look at all of that now as it was such a gift. First, it got me to where I am today, but also, those are protective behaviors. And my experience has been when I give myself the spaciousness to be still, to have a stillness practice where I invite kindness and compassion and peace, I don't have the need as much to engage in those maladaptive protective behaviors.
That's a good word. Yeah, I like recognizing that as a gift. I'm wondering what it means to be the director of student wellness. And before we get into that, do you have any connection with John Shepherd as well?
I don't think I know John.
Okay. He was the first podcast guest on the Mindfulness Academy podcast, and he provides mindfulness for, I think it may be just IU Health employees.
IU Health, I do know. Right.
Okay.
He's not at Indiana University.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Well, he's wonderful and so appreciative.
I read about John. Yeah, I need to meet him. John, if you're watching this, I really would like to meet you.
I'll let him know he is mentioned on this podcast. So let's talk about that director of student wellness. What is that all about? And how did you land that? Did they make this because they knew of your writing and communication and wellness?
Right. Yeah, this is what happened.
Together? I mean,
I know it's a strange combination, but it really does fit.
Did you pitch it or did they pitch you on this whole idea?
Oh, I totally pitched it.
Yes.
I more than pitched it. I nudged and nudged and nudged. And what happened was, so I come into the dental school, and you have to remember, in addition to being a health and wellness coach and a mindfulness practitioner and on my way to being a teacher, I'm a mom. Okay. And these magnificently beautiful students are young enough to be my children.
Right.
And I walk into the dental school and I see the level of stress that they're under. And it's an incredibly rigorous 4-year program. And unlike medical students, within their 3rd year of dental school, so not internship, not residency, but 3rd year, of dental school. So let's say they go to dental school right after college. They're 24 years old in their third year of dental school, and they're performing surgery, procedures in people's mouths. So it's in addition to the incredible amount of didactic and lab work that they do, creating crowns and bridges, and they're also very much learning the clinical and practicing clinical dentistry by their third year. It's a lot of stress. And professional schools tend to attract type A perfectionist individuals. I get it. And they've never failed before. Many of them have never had a B in their life, and dental school is a lot tougher than undergrad. And so they have to learn to fall and get back up again. And they're incurring an incredible amount of debt. That's a whole nother topic, but it costs a lot to go to dental school, even in state. So there's a lot of stress on them. And I saw it. And so I went to our dean at the time, Dr. John Williams, and I said, I can help. And I had a colleague at the dental school, Dr. Vanchit John, who's the chair of periodontology, and he is very interested in mindfulness. And so we just started a Monday mindfulness where he would send his students down and I would read breathing, meditation, we'd read some poetry. You know, mindfulness people love poetry.
Yes, we do.
And that's how it started. But then our dean kept going to conferences where wellness was being discussed. And I nudged him just enough at just the right time that he said, fine, just do it, create a program. So that's where it began. And we started teaching evidence-based mind-body tools for stress reduction to the dental students, more in a co-curricular way. Only at one period, we talked about building it into the curriculum. And, but fortunately, I actually worked myself out of a job because we got a new dean who brought in a director of student services and a social worker to handle the needs of the students. So now my wellness is more in an advisory role, and I work with Healthy IU systemically, teaching mindfulness. And then I'm now working in my private practice a lot with practicing dentists. And so that's how it's evolved for me. But yeah, I mean, through mindfulness, we kicked off the wellness programming at the dental school. And I'm just so grateful for that because it really has made a difference. I mean,
Tell me about that. Tell me about that difference.
Well, one of the things I brought in was QPR suicide prevention training. This is beyond mindfulness, but related. And that was one of the wellness programs that we brought in. And where students would learn how to identify and support and refer their peers or loved ones, family members, for help. And I had students come to me and say, you know, I never thought I'd actually have to ask the question, are you thinking about killing yourself? But they would say, I did.
Yeah.
And I had patients who I felt very concerned about. And so that's an example. I love teaching students a practice called 4-7-8 breathing. I call that their superpower. And that's a way of activating the parasympathetic nervous system, the relaxation response. And it's a great practice to do before they have an exam. In fact, I have a really cool story about that. If I could share it. This isn't my story. It's one I adopted, but one of my mentors is Dr. Christina Paston, and she's the director of Mind Body Wellness at Tufts Dental School of Medicine in Boston. And she tells the story of she's an endodontist, and there was an endodontics resident about to take their clinical board exam. And this resident, she had a panic attack right before she's taking this test. She had a tray of instruments, the tray went flying, and she's hyperventilating. And Dr. Paston, sees her. Dr. Paston's a yoga practitioner, and she's like, I can help her. And that's the same feeling I had in the dental school. Like, I have some tools that I can share, and I want to be able to help them. So she took the resident aside and said, if it's okay with you, I can teach you a breathing practice. Would you like to breathe with me? And so they did a yogic breathing practice. And the resident went on to take her clinical board. She passed. And then she said to Dr. Paston, in my 11 years of training, this was the most important thing I learned: how to self-regulate. And the incredible thing is it only takes a couple minutes. And really just one slow inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth is enough to activate the relaxation response. So it's been really gratifying to teach these tools to students, and they're so smart and so open. A lot of them. Some of them aren't. Mindfulness is certainly not for everybody. And sometimes you can go on a kind of esoteric path with mindfulness, but I keep it to the science. I mean, this is science. It's been studied for years, since the late 80s. There are literally thousands of studies that show the evidence-based benefits of mindfulness practices. And so I, especially in the dental school, I stick to the science, and the students can attach to that. They can, they find that sticky, and
you win their trust on the evidence-based, the scientific approach. I'm sure that is incredibly helpful, and so many goosebumps over that story. How beautiful is that?
Yeah.
And
so I never know, I don't know how many times our students have used these practices. These are also practices, a lot of people don't like going to the dentist. And these are practices that they can use with their patients as well. I was part of a research study evaluating virtual reality visualization and a guided meditation for a dental patient.
Yeah, I'm thinking the benefits are not only for the doctor themselves, but also the patient is experiencing a calmer doctor, which can help with their own anxiety, because nobody wants a nervous doctor opening up, or dentist opening up their mouth. So I think that's helpful. But extending that to the patient, those modalities, is something I hadn't considered that might be on the table for the work that you're doing. That's fantastic. Now that we have a little bit of a sense of what the mindfulness training for the IU health or the IU dental students is like, I'd like to know a little bit of the other part of your work. Tell us about your coaching business. So you have Leslie Flowers Coaching and Mindfulness. What is that all about? What are you doing with your coaching business?
Yeah, well, as a health and well-being coach, I motivate and partner with people to be their healthiest, most vibrant, and successful selves. My practice combines inner exploration, deep listening, which is really where mindfulness comes in, achievable action steps, and accountability and support, so that they can accomplish their goals and live their best lives. I meet people where they are, and we focus on multiple interconnected dimensions of well-being. It's really where they would like to see perhaps some shifts. And the science of behavior change tells us that it takes about 90 days to create a new habit or make a lasting behavioral shift. We're laying down new neural pathways. And so I coach people typically via telehealth over 6 sessions spread out over 3 months. And sometimes we get through that first goal and we move on to another one. Sometimes it's a little slower, and then we continue.
What are the sorts of things that people come to you asking for help with? Paint us some pictures here.
I'd say a lot of what we talk about is career, and I do a lot around stress management. Those are the two main, I'd say those are the bulk of my practice. But we go into mental and emotional health, not a therapist, but I help them create a pathway toward getting the type of mental health that they may need. We discuss nutrition, lifestyle management, physical activity and fitness, sleep and rest, and also their physical environment. I can tell by the way that you dress and your office that, that's really important to you. And so I help people create a home or office environment that supports them. And I'm not talking necessarily about their colleagues, although that can be a part of it as well, but really their physical environment. All the sensations that we experience in our workspace.
Ooh. Tell us about an example of when you've done that. I did not realize the 360 nature of what you're up to in your practice. So
360.
I'm really fascinated by that. I've become very laser focused on environment, especially in our office. I really love to create an environment where we feel like there's enough light and the air temperature is good and it smells nice and we feel like we have enough space and privacy, or 1,000 things, right, in an office environment. What sorts of things have you worked on? Like, I need another painted picture here.
Right. One of the most gratifying client experiences I had was helping a woman clean out her garage.
Okay.
That garage was like an elephant, it was this elephant on her back. And as Desmond Tutu says, and I'm paraphrasing, how do we eat an elephant one bite at a time? And small steps lead to big changes. So over 6 weeks, over 6 sessions in 3 months, we plotted out a course of action to get her garage cleaned out. And just removing that clutter from her life opened up a spaciousness for her. Another person, it was remodeling her kitchen, something she had wanted to do for years and years and years. She finally had the money to do it, but just was paralyzed. There were so many decisions, so many choices to make. And so just supporting her and taking small steps toward that goal.
Oh, that's
Little
so
by little.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. So they tend to be, you said 6 sessions over the course of how long?
3 months.
3 months. Okay. And then do folks maybe sometimes add on another 6 sessions, or do you have kind of maintenance plans or things like that? I'm just curious how it works.
Well, during the 3 months, we check in with each other. I'm available by text or by email. And then, if we haven't accomplished the goal and they want to keep at it, sure, we add another 3 months, or they may have a new goal. And then we continue working together.
So how does mindfulness play a part in what you're doing? I can fill in gaps, make assumptions, but tell me about that, because figuring out how to clean out a garage or what sorts of foods would best nourish your body, there's lots of space in between those two. And I'm curious how mindfulness applies to the different areas that you cover.
That's a really good question, Amy. It's in a way, it's really a powerful question. 3 things come to mind. First, what I shared earlier, that we need to check in. We need to get quiet and check in and see what's going on, body, mind, spirit, to know where we may want or need a shift in our lives. The second is, if the client wants it, I'll start the session with a mindfulness practice, a short one. And as I said, mindfulness isn't for everybody. Some people don't like to get quiet, and I meet clients where they are. So for other people, mindfulness, there's a whole new realm of mindfulness called trauma-informed mindfulness, where we have to be aware that, again, getting quiet for some people is terrifying.
And the breath can be terrifying.
Breath can be terrifying. So because whether, let's say, they've had asthma, or maybe they almost drowned, or they were choked. So we have to be really sensitive and aware where people are. And I have my clients fill out a pretty lengthy health assessment, so I know essentially where they're coming in. But if they're open to it, we begin with a mindfulness practice. And I have a lot of clients who say that's their favorite part once they get into it, because it's relaxing. And I think mindfulness gives some people a sense of coming home to their true nature. And it's so spacious and again, relaxing. It's really nurturing and nourishing. It can also be painful, because again, when we get quiet, then things that we have been pushing on the back burner, especially emotions, uncomfortable aspects of ourselves, of our lives, can come up to the surface. And then finally, mindfulness helps me in the sessions to be a really good listener. And, so much of what I do is listen and reflect back. People often have the answers that they need within them. And I ask them good open-ended questions like we learn in journalism school. And then I deeply listen. I listen and I look at their body language, and I hear what they're saying and the space in between what they're saying, what goes unsaid. And it's just such a gift to have someone deeply listen and hear. I think most people just want to be heard and validated.
I was just thinking of that this last week. I think that is it's rare to come by. I think we're very distracted a lot of times. And for someone to, whether it's over Zoom or if it's in person, for someone just to set everything aside and look you square in the eyes and just be completely there is, I think, one of the most invaluable gifts you could give another human.
It is a gift, and so rare. I think a lot of us want to get in and fix, and fix, manage, and control. And being a coach is letting go of all of that. I do not have the answers. I have resources. I have a full digital Rolodex of people to refer clients to, whether they're therapists or career coaches or career counselors, nutritionists, but that's not my job. My job is not to be the clinical provider other than as a coach. And when I was at my Duke training now 10 years ago, it was in person. I loved traveling to Raleigh, Durham, and I would travel. I, of course, would drive through Asheville on the way there from Indiana. And then I'd come, I'd go away for a few days, and my kids were pretty young then. They were like 10 and 13, and then come home. And I remember my daughter, the 10-year-old, saying, "Mommy, will you play cards with me?" And the light bulb went off that she didn't want to play cards. I mean, cards were fun. We played Go Fish and Crazy Eights and War. When we played cards, she had me on the floor, and all I could do was be present with her playing cards. And this is before we carried cell phones around everywhere. And what she was saying is, "Mommy, will you pay attention to me? Will you stop making dinner and stop paying the bills and doing stuff for the PTA? Will you come sit down on the floor and be present with me?"
Sweet.
Wow. Yeah.
It sounds incredibly true.
It is precious.
That
Our
is
time
so
together
sweet.
is precious.
I'm wondering if you would tell us what the definition of mindfulness is for you. Everyone has their own little spin. And I know since you've been through mindfulness-based stress reduction, there's the John Kabat-Zinn line, and maybe you want to adopt that as your own, or you have, or maybe it's a little different. So I want to give the space for you to tell us what mindfulness is in your words.
When I teach this to students, I give 3 definitions. One is John Kabat-Zinn's: mindfulness is paying attention in the present moment with kindness and compassion, as if your life depends on it, because it does. Life is made up of moments, and when we don't pay attention to those moments, we lose a part of our life. Another definition I give is much more condensed. And by the way, my favorite line in John Kabat-Zinn's definition is compassion, self-compassion, self-kindness. That's been another greatest gift for me in mindfulness practices: compassion for myself and others. The other definition I like is focused awareness. And students dig that. They get that just paying attention on purpose. All I need to focus on right now is what's in front of me. And then my definition is pause. So it's standing at the kitchen sink, my daughter and kids they're our greatest teachers, and they are our greatest sources of triggers, emotional triggers. And, this is more like when
I think I just heard the listener say amen. I mean, I did. I swear I did. Oh,
and, she could say something and trigger me. And, my back, I feel my muscles tense and I want to trigger back, fire back. And mindfulness allows me the grace, truly, to pause, to catch my breath and not react, at least the way that I would have reacted. It gives me the choice to respond rather than react. So, yeah, I call it just the pause.
and if my children are listening to this, I love you. I think they actually do listen. So I love you to the moon and back. I want you to tell me a little bit more about your mindfulness routine. You said since the time you're 20 that you've had a daily mindfulness practice. Since this has been a span of time, I'm wondering how it's morphed and where it is now, what that might look like, and what time of day, if there's a morning mindfulness bit, or you're more of an evening, or both. Give us, give us that whole journey.
I try to meditate, and that is my primary form of mindfulness, first thing in the morning. And I would say 95% of the days I do that. Sometimes, if I wake up late or catching a plane, or for me, it is like brushing my teeth and drinking water. It has become so much a part of my daily life. And I've never done a placebo double-blind controlled study, but I can just tell you that the days that I meditate and the days that I don't are very different. The days that I meditate, there is a flow. And I won't say that like miraculously parking spots open up, but sometimes it feels that way, or I can't find a parking spot, but I don't get upset about it. And I interact with my colleagues at work in a much easier way. My work seems just to get done. And so now I wouldn't do without it, like I wouldn't do without food or water or sunshine. And so, yes, my practice has really changed over the years. At first, I would just read a daily reader and just sit quietly. Back when I drank coffee, I had to give that up, but sit with my coffee and sit in a chair. When I moved to Boulder and I was part of a spiritual community, it was much more regimented, I would say. 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night, light a candle, sit on my meditation cushion. And now, because I love mindfulness teachings, and there are so many teachers now readily available through apps, through YouTube, I listen. I often listen to a meditation now. So I'm not always on my meditation chair. Sometimes I just sit up on my bed, and sometimes I lay in my bed, especially since I don't do coffee. I'm a little slow waker, and I listen to a guided meditation. And then my most fun practice is driving my son to work in the morning. I drop him off on the way, and we listen to the Calm app. We listen to Jay Shetty's the Daily Jay.
Yeah.
Perfect amount of time from where he lives to work. And we get a teaching. Jay is very just a beautiful teacher. And there's so many beautiful mindfulness teachers. And there's a short meditation. Now, I don't do the meditation because I'm driving. But then we always end that together. So I love sharing that with my son. And and then, mindfulness it's an all day, everyday practice. It's being in the present moment, where our power is. That's really the only moment there is this present moment.
A few things that you said sparked a memory for me that feels applicable here. You talked about your daughter wanting to spend time with just you. You also talk about driving your son. I remember a while back I asked another mom, where her kids went to school and what kind of commute that looked like. And the commute was shockingly long. And I said, oh my gosh, that must be just so much from you. And she said, I thought it might be that way. But what I've realized is it is the uninterrupted time I get with my child. And that is the greatest gift. Every other time any other time we step out of that car, we have other things that we're doing. We're off to other places. But when they're in the car, they're just with each other. She said, I learned so much and it's just a great time of bonding. And so I think sometimes when you hear of other folks, even for this conversation, we're talking about like the parenting moments, it helps. It helps reframe some of those times where it can feel like there's kind of a lot going on and woe is me. But when you stop and say, let's be mindful about this, this is a gift. I get to sit in this car with my child who is, for us, we're lucky, is healthy and active. I love that. So it's been helping me be more mindful.
Yeah.
Um, I'm wondering if you would or if you would tell us which mindfulness practice might be best to share with our guests, and if you would want to lead us in one of
I would love
those.
to. If I could just go back 1 minute to what we were talking about. John Kabat-Zinn has a line, those little moments, they're not so little. Yeah. And then I also don't want to give the impression that I am mindful all the time. They call it a practice for a reason. And Friday nights, we pick up Chinese and I turn on the PBS NewsHour and I'm not doing anything mindful. I am zoning out. I am in highly mindful that I am intentionally going away. I used to say to my kids at 9 o'clock, I have nothing left to give you.
But you're mindful of that of yourself and you're
Yes,
honoring it. I tell people that Friday nights, whenever people invite us to things on Friday nights, I'm like, we just have nothing to give. I would love to do this. We are coasting in on fumes. It is pizza and movie night. And we
exactly.
guard that like it is a religious event. I mean,
I'm
we just
turning on
can't
the bath.
even.
I'm watching Grey's Anatomy. Just please, yeah, don't ask me to be present for anything. So yeah, let me ask you, I could share the 4-7-8 breathing practice, which is a lovely way to activate the relaxation response. I consider, breathing practices part of mindfulness, a really effective part of mindfulness. Or I could lead a short guided meditation. So what would you like?
Could we change or to and? I
And
feel like
yeah,
maybe we could do two short ones because
sure.
if we just did
Yeah.
maybe like the 5 breaths of the one, you led us in that before we even started recording today, and I feel I went from 100 miles an hour to more like a 20, so it
Okay.
helped.
Well, how many minutes do I have?
How about could we do 5 total? Maybe we do a couple minutes of
Perfect.
breathing and 2 or 3 of the other. Okay.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So again, the breath is not neutral for everyone. So this may be a practice that speaks to you. It may not. If we're going to do counted breathing, and we're going to inhale for the count of 4, hold for the count of 7, and exhale for the count of 8. If that feels like it's too long, then just do 3, 4, and 4. So inhale for the count of 3, hold for the count of 4, exhale for the count of 4. And as I'm saying that, I decided, let's just do that. Because for some people, holding their breath, again, is triggering. And so that's the last thing we want to do. We want to treat ourselves always with kindness and compassion in mindfulness. So we'll do a guided breathing practice, and then I'll just lead us in a short body scan meditation. So if it feels comfortable, close your eyes. If not, you can gaze down or find an object in the room that's lovely to look at. It could be a photo or flower, candle. You can either be sitting crisscross or your feet resting on the floor, back straight, without being rigid. Maybe tilting your chin down just like a 1/4 inch to open up the cervical spine and allow the greater movement of the breath. Dropping in. Noticing the normal, natural rhythm of your breath. The movement of your clothes as you inhale and exhale. Relaxing your shoulders. Now we'll move into an intentional breathing practice to activate the relaxation response. Moving out of our fight or flight into rest and digest. So after your next exhale, inhale for the count of 3 through your nose. 2, 3. Now hold. 1, 2, 3. And exhale through the mouth like you're blowing out a candle. 2, 3, 4. Inhale. Hold. 2, 3. Exhale through the mouth. 3, 4. Inhale. Hold. And exhale. Inhale. Hold. And exhale. Allowing your breath to return to its normal, natural rhythm. Bringing some mindful awareness to the body, starting at the very top of your head. Noticing sensations of the head, moving into the face, the eye sockets, the jaw, all the muscles around the mouth. Noticing sensations of the ears, moving into the neck, and the throat. Not trying to change or make anything different in the body, simply becoming aware of the shoulder blades, the deep muscles of the shoulders, traveling down the arms into the wrist and hands and fingers, bringing gentle, compassionate awareness, especially to parts of the body that might not feel as great as you'd like them to today. Moving down the back and the chest, heart and the lungs, diaphragm, solar plexus, the entire torso, all the organs of detoxification and digestion and elimination. Awareness of the pelvic bowl, the glutes, moving into those very large muscles of the thighs, awareness and compassion. Into the knees, the calves and the shins, into the ankles, the heels and arches and balls of the feet and each toe. And now getting in touch with the life force energy that's in the earth. Mother Earth bringing that life force energy back in through your feet, through the arches of your feet, and allowing that energy to travel all the way up through the legs, in the torso, in the upper back, in through the arms and the shoulders and the neck. This life force energy traveling up through the body into the face and the ears, into the brain, and out the top of your head like a fountain, sharing this life force energy with yourself and the people important to you, and to all sentient beings on this planet. May we all be well and happy, safe. May we feel a sense of well-being and loving kindness. When you're ready, coming back into the space that you're in, very gently, slowly fluttering your eyes open.
I noticed I
Being
feel very
present for this
calm.
mindful. Good, good.
Present. I'm sorry I cut you off.
That's okay. That's okay. We were done.
I'm
Please.
wondering, we've talked a little bit about your work. I feel like I have a good sense of what you have done over the course of your career and where your passion is in helping dental students, but also just everyday people who aren't dental students. I'm wondering if I'm curious, the journalist in me is wondering how stress manifests in dental students. I wonder if that's any different than other humans because of this, this force that they are under. What do you see? What have you seen in that regard?
I think a dental student, now I'm making a gross generalization, but what I have observed is that dental students are very smart and very high achieving. You can't get into dental school unless you are. And it draws somewhat of a perfectionistic personality. And you want your dentist to be a perfectionist, okay?
I do.
You want somebody working in your mouth, especially if you're having orthodontics. 1 millimeter makes a difference. So perfectionism is not a bad thing, but it tends to draw a personality type that is very driven and high performing, and they're not used to failing. And there will be times in every dental student's life where they will fail a project. And so it's really important to instill qualities of resiliency, which mindfulness really helps with. We learn how, like we're a tree, we learn how to bend under the stress, but not break. Mm. And I often compare it to dental materials. You want a dental material that is sturdy and hardy, but almost every dental material under enough stress will break. And so we really want to prevent that. There's a big difference between the professional graduate student and an undergraduate student. And we see that over and over. I work at now what's called IU Indianapolis, and I've taught mindfulness to undergraduate students, and I've taught mindfulness to professional graduate students, dental students, medical students, law students, PT, social work, and the stressors are just different. The level of intensity is really amped up, and also the level of debt that they are incurring to embark on these high pressure careers.
Have you woven in any kind of tangential sorts of modalities with them? I'm wondering if visualization might help them, or if they might get that through other sorts of professionals in their sphere of support. Has that been something that has been practiced? There are other things that are outside of kind of the normal that we would talk about as mindfulness.
Yeah, when I teach dental students meditation, I often do a guided visualization, guided relaxation visualization. That's very supportive.
I bet so. I think you've covered a lot of the bits in this, how it's impacted the students. I think we've covered enough probably on that front, unless there's anything else you want to add about that whole part of your journey and spreading the gospel of mindfulness.
Just how rewarding it is.
Yeah, for you personally. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I am a midwife when we open our eyes after a guided meditation or a people who are doing their own practice. And or at the end of the 6-week course I teach, or the 8-week course that I teach with Scott, when people to see a light come on in their eyes, and it isn't anything that we have done. We really are, I feel like, witnessing and midwifing, supporting people in coming home to themselves. And mindfulness gives them the spaciousness and the time and the awareness and presence to come home to who they are. And I really can't think of a better gift, of a better career to be
I'm sorry, to what? I'm sorry.
To be a part of. Between the coaching and mindfulness, I witness people coming alive to their true nature. It's really a blessing.
I love that. I also really loved earlier, I'm probably gonna have to make a short out of it because it was so great. You talked about how really we only have this moment, and if we're not present for it, we lose out on that part of our lives. And I really felt kind of tingly as you were saying that, because it's the reason I practice mindfulness. It's the reason why I have this podcast, why I want to share this with others, because of that. At the end of the day, as far as we know, we have one shot at this life thing. And if we're not here for it, we've missed out on this little bitty bit that we get to be on this planet Earth. And I can think of no better way to help people make the most of it than to be present for it. And it is a practice. It strikes me often, the word practice, when we talk about medical related services. And it can be a little unnerving at times, the dentistry practice, we're practicing here, or my doctor is part of a practice. Sometimes they even say that my marketing company is a practice. You do the best with the information that you know, and then you practice, you see what is actually going to work best. You have, what's worked in the past for other clients. You apply that to the situation, but then you test and you measure and you see, where do we need to adjust course? And I'm sure some of that even comes into play with teaching mindfulness. You may realize, man, this particular, section of dental students they're just not feeling the sitting down and being quiet. And so you have practiced that and that doesn't really resonate. So you might need to try something else in the mix. Or maybe they just need to practice and maybe it will grow on them. It's kind of a testing environment. Is that how you kind of approached it? Or is it kind of more of
That's a beautiful way of stating it, Amy. Two thoughts. One is the beauty of looking at life as a practice through the lens of mindfulness is that when we bring kindness and compassion to that practice, we're not hard on ourselves when we make mistakes, that we have the spaciousness to shift course. The other thing about teaching dental students and professional students mindfulness, now my mindfulness teachers may strongly disagree with me on this point. It is recommended that when you meditate that you are awake, that you will experience the greatest benefits being awake and alert without alert without being alarmed, being present. Okay. When we're sleeping, we're not really present, but I make a major exception for dental students because they're tired. And if leading a guided meditation, if they fall asleep, then in my mind, then that they are practicing mindfulness because they are aware that they're tired. And if they get 20 minutes of rest in their day, like I said, I'm a mom first. I just don't want them to hit their head on the table while their head is bobbing. But other than that, I feel that way really for anybody. If you fall asleep, and a lot of people, when they first start out meditating, they do sleep. Even when I go to a meditation retreat, I have worked so hard to get to that retreat, wrapping up work, wrapping up my family obligations, making sure there's food in the fridge and there's a cat sitter and I will fall asleep in the beginning of a retreat. That's really common. And that's okay. So that's where you're at. You're tired. Sleep.
I think that's a good word. It takes the pressure off, and it's just human. It's just human.
Just
I don't know
human.
how many might, just to normalize it. I don't know about you, but in a number of mindfulness classes I've been part of, I've heard snoring. I mean, loud snoring. I
Yeah.
am very mindful of the fact that someone is asleep beside me.
Yeah.
But it's okay because I think there's a lot of compassion that you can have for yourself. You can also have compassion for other people. It's a great opportunity to look at that person and think, oh my gosh, did they have to fly here? Or what is going on in their lives that 3 minutes in, we are at this level of snoring. There's a
They're
lot going
tired.
on there. They're
Yeah.
tired, and
Yeah.
it's okay. It's okay. I think letting go of that perfectionistic side of things, I struggle with that too, but letting go of it is part of the journey in mindfulness, because sometimes instead of the 45 minutes in the morning, I can only do 40 or I can only do 30 or 20, and letting go of that need to fit into this very rigid box. It's something I have to keep training myself in. So I love that word. I'm curious if there is a piece of advice, and now that you have seen what you've been through, or what the students have been through, the dental students, you have been there as this midwife to mindfulness and coming home to themselves. I love that as a concept and a visualization of what you're doing. I think that's beautiful. I'm curious if there's a piece of advice that you would give to stressed out dental students. Is there a place they could start, or a piece of advice that you might give them?
Yes. Put down your phone. The digital distractions are exhausting us and stressing us all out. But I think especially this younger generation that grew up with the phone, and they have the world in their hands, and the world can be a magnificently beautiful place and a really, really scary place. And to have time at least every day to detox digitally. And so that would be my number one piece of advice for them and for me. And then the second would be to find a way to treat yourself with loving kindness and compassion.
If somebody said,
Because
how? Is there a how, like even just a
how
simple how? That would be my
sometimes
first question.
sometimes it's taking just one breath. You talked about it, not getting 40 minutes of meditation in a day. Sometimes it's just while I'm brushing my teeth, looking in the mirror and seeing myself through the eyes of kindness. It takes some perspective, some more life perspective. And that's one of the joys of being in my 50s is I have that perspective. And I hope I keep getting more. But that each moment is sacred, and also it's okay to fail. It's okay to fail. We get back up and brush ourselves off and treat ourselves with kindness and compassion, and the awareness that this is one moment in many other moments. This one test, this one seeming perceived failure doesn't define who you are.
Those are really great words, Leslie. I'd like to move into a time where you could tell our listeners a little bit about your coaching business, what sorts of offerings that are available that they could learn about perhaps online, and where they could find out more about you. So just kind of some Cliff's notes on that would be fantastic.
The best place to find me is on my website at www.leslie, Leslie for Anne, flowers.com, leslieaflowers.com. And on there, I talk about my coaching practice, how you can schedule a complimentary intro session to see if it's something that interests you. I coach right now all day Wednesdays and Saturday mornings. And then my classes are also online. Scott and I will be starting up the 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction course, probably in late August, early September. And then I teach a series of 6 weeks online mindful way to stress reduction courses. And that's almost like an intro to the 8-week class. Totally not necessary. I took my first 8-week class. Actually, I did take the intro first, but the intro sessions, the 6 weeks, are online and they're only 1 hour. The 8-week class meets in person for 8 weeks, and each session is 2.5 hours. So one is sort of a mini version of the other.
I love that there are options, and the one is the 6 weeks is online, you said,
Correct.
and the 8 weeks is in person. So I love the options that you provide folks.
I also, Amy, I teach, and I love going into organizations, classrooms. I'm preparing several talks for professional meetings to teach mind-body tools for stress reduction.
Excellent. And folks can get in touch with you through your website to learn more and
Yes.
request that. Beautiful.
And my email, if they'd like to reach out to me directly, is leslieaflowers@gmail.com.
Excellent. What are some of the topics that you've presented on?
I talk a lot about mind-body tools for stress reduction. I'm preparing, though, a series of topics related to health and well-being, on inflammation, on breaking up with your phone, breathing practices, the connection in the brain gut axis for mental health. These are topics that really interest me, and so I pitch them to professional organizations, and they're like, yeah, that's great. So I'm speaking at the Indiana Dental Association annual meeting in a couple of weeks, and then also at the American Dental Association annual meeting in the fall.
Wonderful. Well, I hope folks will reach out to you. It sounds like you have just a wealth of information, a wonderful story. I appreciate you sharing all of this with us. It's very, very exciting work, and impactful. Before we close up here, I would like to lead us in the glowy daily reflection practice. For our listeners, if this is your first time, the glowy daily reflection practice is an original practice I developed and is part of the Chaos Antidote, A Fable About Mindfulness, my first book, and its companion workbook, the Chaos Antidote 6-week mindfulness workbook. And I'm going to lead Leslie in this. I'm going to let her give us the answers. So GLOWY, GLOWY, is an acronym. The G stands for gratefulness. So the things that we might be grateful for, and that could be one or a couple, whatever you want to share. The L is for lift up, those things that need resources for our own selves or for those that we love or know, or the greater world. The O is for observe. We know lots about observing. And that could be something internal or external that you might notice. The W is for wholesome intention, also something very important in the mindfulness realm. That could be something small, being present in this moment, could be something that's in the bigger realm of the Leslie Flowers empire. And the Y is for you are, sending yourself off with a positive affirmation. So we'll say, Leslie, you are, and you'll be able to give yourself a little love. That self-compassion we've been talking about, your own little dose of that. So the G stands for grateful. What is something you're grateful for, Leslie?
I am grateful for my teachers, Scott Sweet for bringing us together. Amy, I consider you a teacher, and I'm so grateful for the wisdom that you are sharing through your podcast and your books, but all the teachers who have imparted their wisdom and experience, strength, and hope into me.
Thank you for that. What would you like to lift up?
I would like to lift up anyone in this world who is suffering, anyone who is hungry, who is not safe, who is not clothed or housed. I lift them up to the universal power of love.
And what might you observe? right now?
I'm observing spaciousness. I'm observing all the options and opportunities that are available for me and for my loved ones to live our passions and be of service to the world.
What a gift. What might be a wholesome intention of yours?
My intention is for all beings to live in peace and safety, warmth, and most important, love.
And lastly, that self-compassion. Leslie, you are
Rich in spirit and in friends and in love.
I love this. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us what you're doing with dental students who desperately need that help of yours, for all the various things that you're doing for your coaching clients, and sounds like even for professional organizations, you're also offering that wisdom and to your students. So I would highly recommend that folks who are listening, check out our website, see what she's all about. Leslie A. Flowers, Leslie A. Flowers.com. Check her out, see what she has to offer, and share the message of what she has to offer for everyone. Thank you again for being you, for doing all this precious work, and for sharing your message with our listeners. We greatly appreciate this, and the modalities that you even let us in today. Those are more tools that we can take with us into our lives to be more present.
Thank you, Amy. It has been absolutely delightful to get to know you, and thank you for the opportunity to share the joys of mindfulness with your listeners.
Well, from my heart to yours, may you live with ease. This is your host, Amy Morgan, signing off. Today's podcast is sponsored by Good Aim Communications. Good Aim Communications is found at goodaimcommunications.com.